All right, I think we are live here, and everybody, sorry for the delay on that. We had some technical difficulties, but excited to have a special guest on our Wednesday Art of Homeownership webinar here. Good friend of mine, and just a amazing gift to the entire real estate and mortgage industry. Rene Rodriguez with Amplify on with us today. Rene, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure, my friend. It's always good to work with you.
Yeah. So, guys, today we are going to be talking about how to connect more deeply with your clients, whether you're a real estate agent or a mortgage professional, how we use Art of Homeownership to do that at a high level, and how we can really have influence over the impact of the life of our clients. Before we jump into that, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Rene's event that we have coming up here on August 18th. In
19th.
Las Vegas, August 19th. Good thing people would have showed up a day early. In Las Vegas. And Rene, do you want to really quickly just touch on it? I know we're bringing a ton of people from Art of Homeownership and from our group, but would love for the audience to learn more about it.
Yeah, it's really a day of being together with about 450, 500 of the nation's top producers, learning how to really leverage the science of influence to create a bigger impact. And so influence is a science that can be learned. And we're going to dive deep that day with this amazing group of people to learn how we can craft our messages, how we can manage our body language to communicate the highest, most effective forms of communication. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. Guys, if you haven't been to an Amplify event before, do yourself a favor, go to this one. There's going to be awesome after parties. It's going to be a lot of fun, but the time you're going to have in that event is going to change the way that you connect with not just your clients, but almost with everybody you come across. All right, well, let's jump into this, Rene. So, the premise of why I wanted to have you on today was to help the audience understand how to have a deeper connection with their clients that's less transactional, that ultimately ends up leading to them understanding the true value of a 30-year relationship as opposed to a 30-day transaction. You're the master at influence and getting your message across. So how would you just kick this off by giving us a high level, and then we'll kind of get into more granular stuff.
For sure. Well, I think that if you're watching this and you're a customer of Art of Homeownership or you user of it, you are in a competitive marketplace. So that it's just I want to start fundamentals, right? You have to compete against other people trying to do the same thing that you are. And in today's world, today's market, the thing that consumers have is they have choices, and they have choices of who they do business with. And those choices are based on certain elements. And the default position that people go to when no other choices are offered or no other values communicated, they go to things that are simple like price, because they can measure that. And so we all know, and we don't have to go into detail about the reality that price is just one factor within a lot of decisions, especially something that is big as home ownership. And excuse me, but the interest rate, the price, all of those things that we're really charging is just one small piece of the puzzle. And that's what I love so much about what you've put together, is because you're helping people see a much bigger picture. And that's where the challenge is. And I think that's where the opportunity is the person that's going to win is going to be the one that helps the customer relook at something that they just saw as sort of, let me get the lowest payment, let me get the lowest interest rate, as a long-term relationship with a home that most people don't know how to do. And that, when they look at it from that perspective, and you're the one responsible for helping them see that bigger picture, you have differentiated yourself in the marketplace. And so when we talk about a competitive marketplace, you have to realize that there's only three ways that we know that you can compete. And that's written by Michael Porter, Dr. Michael Porter out of Harvard, who wrote the book Competitive Strategy back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And yeah, amazing book. And what he said, there's only three ways you compete. One is lowest cost, right? But Walmart has figured that one out. The other one is through a focused niche. Like, I only help people here. I have a friend of mine that only does downtown condos and lofts. And then the last one is differentiation. And differentiation is a very misunderstood and overused term that people don't really understand its foundation. But people say, well, it's to be different and to stand out. No, that's not it. Because you could wear a clown suit, be different, stand out, but you're not going to get the deal. Right? It's, you have to stand out in such a unique way that you don't have to lower your price. Right. And so you can sell your product without having to lower its price. I mean, it's so unique. It's so different. There aren't any other choices. It's so different that I'll pay this premium to be able to get this. Now, the premium comes with value, new things, features, benefits, and all of the things that Art of Homeownership has to offer are worth a fraction of all of that. So you as the real estate agent or you as a loan officer need to learn how to communicate those elements. And you guys have laid it out, like, I mean, literally on a silver platter.
Well, thank you. I think one of the things that, people can struggle with at times is just the confidence in relaying their message, right? And so from, again, this is not an amplified plug, but if you want confidence in relaying your message, Rene can help with that. When it comes to scripting, I have a question about this. I know you and I have talked about it, but I'd love for everybody watching to get a better understanding of where does scripting, what role does it play in their business? Is it something, should it be used as training wheels and they ultimately grow out of it? Should it be something as maybe a general guideline, or should it just be something that's not used at all and it just has to be a level of belief and the words come more from your heart than from your head?
Scripting is essential. It's an essential tool of the professional. And anybody who tries to demonize scripting doesn't understand the power of it and doesn't understand its purpose. And, they say, well, we don't want to sound scripted. Well, that's your fault if you sound scripted, because you come out and you read it once or twice. Yeah, you're going to sound scripted. Yeah. An actor, like I watch actors and how they memorize their scripts. They'll spend months and months and months on these things. Some people will wait till they're sad and they'll reread the script, and they'll wait till they just had some positive thing so they can read those scripts in different emotional places so they can learn how to do it. And this is their livelihood, but it's yours too. And so the script, let's kind of redefine a script. A script is a prescribed set of language that has been tested to work. Yeah. Each word should work. There's a sequence to it. There's a purpose behind it. There's a picture that is painting. And what I always tell people is learn the script as is first. And then you learn its essence, what it's trying to accomplish, where it's trying to take the client to go, what it's trying to preempt. Because a good script is preemptive as well. It's preemptive, something that might come up later. And then once you learn it, you get it, then you start adopting it to your own style. What two people do too often is they try to adopt their own style to something they don't even understand the essence of it. So I'm a huge fan of scripting.
Yeah, and I think the second part of it is, Art of Homeownership has a vast, array of value that we offer to the client. So I know personally I can be a little bit long-winded in my explanation of our value proposition. And I know other people that are on the platform or people that are evaluating it or sometimes struggle with it as well. How can we ensure that we're succinct in our message on the first phone call so the client really understands our differentiated value proposition, but still to the point where we, create intrigue around them learning more as they work more with us and go into that consultation phase of what we do?
I think being succinct comes down to understanding your sales process as there's different phases of communication of value. And so the first one, if you're on an initial phone call, your only objective there is to get the person to want to invest a little more time to hear a bigger story.
Right.
And so that's a small sort of ask. And if you can create just enough, and what we tell people is as much as necessary, as little as possible to reach your objective, as much as necessary, but as little as possible to reach the objective. And what people confuse is objective. If they think the objective on the first call is to make the full sale, they're going to be long-winded. If they're clear that the objective of the first call is to book a longer appointment or to get them in person or to get them on a Zoom call, then they know that I just need to have as much as necessary, as little as possible to move to the next step in the sales process so that you tee yourself up in the best position to communicate something. And also they've opted into it through the intrigue that you've created. And so that the clarity for succinctness comes through clarity of understanding where you are in the sales process.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important because one of the things that, some of the feedback that we typically get from newer Art of Homeownership partners is there's just so much here. It's overwhelming to learn it and figure it out. And if they can just get the succinct nature of, we help people become more successful homeowners through a lifetime of guidance and through valuable options that we offer. Like if they can really understand how to get that into a short enough delivery method that still provides intrigue and has people asking for more, wanting to understand more about what that means. That's just step one, right? And then step two is kind of getting into the longer tail version of it.
For sure. And I would say, just to add to that, if I can, the simple, I like this concept of what we call conceptual selling. For someone to understand the concept that and the value of art of homeownership, there's certain concepts that they need to be agreed upon. If they believe all homes are the same, homeownership is about making a payment and that's it, then the concept is wrong. So the first concept I think needs to be sold that says, you know what, here's the thing. Not all homeownership's the same. Not all homeowners are the same. Some people get into a home and by the end of their time in that home, the home hasn't increased much in value. In fact, it looks more run down. It wasn't properly taken care of. But there are people that can go into the same home that know how to do the little things to maintain and increase the value. Those are the ones that walk out with more equity and more wealth. And so if we understand that there's not all homeownership is the same, but we're going to show you the secrets to ensuring that you have a long-term wealth building process in that, and we're going to coach you through it over the next 30 years. And so that now it's like, wow, I didn't know. If they can't buy off on that simple idea,
right?
But if they do, they go, well, can you tell me more? I'd love to. Here's what the next call looks like. And so now I've achieved this piece, but it's just a simple message to get me to the next step.
So you may have answered this, I don't know if it's completely, so I want to dive a little bit deeper on what you're saying, because my next question was very much in line with what you just said, which is, value is not something that we can define as a company, right? Whatever mortgage or real estate company you work for. If you think you're valuable, but the client doesn't, then you're not valuable, right? And in the same way that the client can't always define value, right? Because, Henry Ford said it best. If I asked my clients what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Yeah.
Right. So value has to be something that the two parties agree on, that the consumer and the company both believe is valuable. So we know what we do, or I guess I should say we believe what we do has a high level of value to the consumer. How would you coach us to find out if the customer also sees value in that?
Well, I think
should we legitimately ask the question, or should we just look for clues?
Well, first, I love the analogy of what Henry Ford said, and I'd phrase it a little differently. I'd say that, our job is to innovate, right? And innovation is disruptive thoughts and ideas that people weren't ready for. So they don't know what they don't know. And so if it's a disruptive thought, which art of homeownership is disruptive, it's very different. And there's no frame of reference. That's where framing comes into play.
Yeah.
If there's no frame of reference, I have a hard time understanding it. And so you've got to be able to create frames of reference and some foundational elements so I can understand what it is that I'm doing. And so, there's a great book called The Conceptual Selling Book. Page 3, right there, it says people don't buy for your reasons. They buy for their own reasons, not yours.
Right.
And so that concept of saying, okay, what are their reasons? And I think he broken down. Jim Rohn had another great example where he said, there's a way to sell and then keep selling and talk your way right out of the sale. And he said, imagine you go to buy a car and you look into the car and the salesperson comes up and says, hey, you like it? And it's like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. And he goes, well, let me tell you a little bit about it. Take you back to the shop, and they open up the trunk, pull out the manual, says, well, let's start with the left front tire. And you're saying, I don't need all of that. I probably need about 5 or 6 points of things that I like, and I'm probably going to be ready to make a decision. And so the skill set is understanding the customer and listening to what's important, but also listening for clues of how sophisticated they are in the process. If they're brand new, they've never done it, then it's a job of asking questions. Hey, did you know? And they go, well, I didn't know. Or they go, yeah, my father taught me how to do that. We're good at doing X, Y, and Z. I mean, really looking forward to taking care of this. And they say, okay, so this person has that part done. Hey, but did you know? And asking those questions or saying, so why is it? And really just letting go of your agenda and getting to know what is exciting for them and why they're doing things. And that requires us to be really, really good listeners. And what I tell people is the longer you listen, the easier the sale is, because they're going to tell you exactly what's important. The challenge is a lot of times people will go after the first one. I think we lost a couple of people. I'll wait for them to come back in. They go after the first sign of somebody wanting to buy, and they jump and pounce right on it. And that is the biggest mistake that anybody can make, because what ends up happening is people get too excited and they feel like they're being sold and pitched. And so part of the job of listening, and especially with something like Art of Homeownership that has so many options, so many options of ways and values to add. I remember when Ryan first walked me through it, I was blown away because, one, I've been in this business a long time, but I didn't know 80% of the things that he was talking about. I had no frame of reference. I didn't even think about that. But the thought of, wow, having somebody guide me through that and showing me really how to do that, what a differentiator. And now this loan officer or real estate agent that brings this new knowledge to me just changed in terms of how I view them. They are now somebody that is indispensable to me. And so in that indispensable sort of frame is really where you want to find yourself. And so a lot of the things that you're going to find in this art of homeownership are tools. And if you get caught up in trying to communicate all of them, you'll find yourself in the same mistake that developers get into when they talk about new technology. They're going to talk about every aspect of the technology, every bell and whistle and all the elements, instead of just listening to the things that are most important to that client and moving on with that piece. So I think, to that point, Ryan, being able to listen and finding that stuff out, a good needs analysis, an intake assessment, talking to the referral partner, however it is really going to help them structure the value proposition of what you do.
Love that. And I apologize, my internet connection went down for a second, so I had to jump back in. But, I know where we were kind of going with this. When sometimes the feedback we'll get, and this is just from my experience with our platform, is because we do so much, and to your point, the consumer is not used to this, right? There's no comparable of a real estate or a mortgage company ever offering anything other than the transaction. Sometimes I feel like the client might be thinking they're being sold something, right? Or that, we're coming across more as a salesperson than a guide or advisor or consultant. As you teach really well, connection and influence and empathy are extremely important in conversations. What should we be doing as real estate agents and mortgage professionals to really create the connection with the client, as opposed to just selling the product, which obviously we believe is highly valuable, but we need to connect with them first for them to even remove their kind of sales radar, right? Or their defense system, to really hear what we're saying and to really understand the level to which we're trying to help them throughout their life.
Well, the first thing I always tell people is we got to stop saying they don't like to be sold, because what we're saying is we're putting a negative frame around selling. Selling to me is a communication of value. What they don't like is your time wasted or them feeling like they're talking about something they don't need. And if they don't need something and you're trying to persuade me and communicate around this need that I don't want, it's like trying to sell me a bra. I don't need one. I don't need one. That's not something I need. It's like, know your audience here. But that sounds like a drastic example, but it can feel that way. And if all I see is you're trying to, I'm a nail and you have a hammer and everything looks like a nail and I look like a nail to you, you're going to try to hammer this point home. It's because they're so inwardly focused around their product and what they're trying to do. And the best way, just like any relationship, is to really let go of the need to try to sell something and really just go in and listen. Because if we see our job as problem solvers, well, you can't solve a problem you don't understand.
Yeah.
And the worst people out there are the ones that assume they know what the problem is. Right. And the arrogance that comes from that, there's me the ignorance that creates. And I think Jim Rohn also said that, arrogance from ignorance is really hard. Arrogance is hard, but arrogance from ignorance is really hard. And so there's an arrogant feel of me trying to sell a product that I don't even know. And if I don't trust you, if I don't know where you're coming from and you haven't done a good job listening, I'm going to feel like you're trying to push me into something I don't want. And my resistance will go up.
Yeah, I think it's really, I think the takeaway, at least for me from that, is ask more questions. So it's not a matter of telling them all the things that we do. It's asking them what they think they need and then showing them the solution. A good example would be, Rene, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but 63% of all millennials and 42% of every person who buys a home has some form of regret within the first 1 to 2 years of buying it. One of the biggest regrets is that people didn't know how much home maintenance and updates and renovations that may need to be done. How confident are you in knowing how to keep your home up to date at a high level and all the things you need to be doing on a proactive basis? And do you really feel that you would be not just a homeowner, but a successful homeowner in terms of keeping your home in great shape and increasing the home's value over time?
So can we play a little game?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So let's flesh that one out, because I might take a different approach to that because I'm experiencing it. You know a lot more about this than I do. So let me ask you another question, because I
Sure.
think there's a question that if you could put before this might be powerful. Is there research that shows that if you do certain things, the home value goes up, and if you don't do these things, the value doesn't go up as much?
Yes.
What would that be, just in general?
So something as simple as, doing, doing consistent like maintenance on the exterior of the home. So like how often the home needs to be painted, how often the roof needs to be repaired, how often that you need to have your your air filters changed, right? Obviously those wouldn't impact value at a high level, but then there's going to be things that when you go to sell the home, there's certain upgrades or updates that need to happen. I'd have to look into the exact research to find
So,
the most
so
important ones, but
if I'm doing that, I might start with that and say, "Hey, were you aware?" Like, or I say, or I'd probably start with something like this and say, one of the greatest things about home ownership is it's your home. You get to do what you want. It's not an
right.
apartment. It's not something else. You get to do what you want, and it also comes with the biggest opportunity and also the biggest risk. Opportunity is you get to do what you want. And there's certain things you can do, but the risk is that not everybody owns a home the same. And there's research that shows that there's 5 things. I'm just making this up right now. Let's assume that we find 5 things or 6 things or whatever, that if you do these 5 things during the time that you own this home, the value increases an additional 26% over somebody who didn't do those things. Now, the crazy part is that those things that they didn't do don't seem all that important. And to be quite
Right.
honest, they don't need to be done. Your home won't technically look any different. But when it comes to resale, that 26% over $400,000 translates into $100,000 difference. And
Yeah.
so, so now I'm like, oh, well, what are those 4 things? I said, well, let's talk about those things. And then I'd say what those 4 or 5 things are, what some of those, and then I would say, how confident do you feel in your ability to keep up with those? Like, do you know the timing is which? Do you have any experience in doing that? I'm like, no, I don't have anything about that. I said, well, that's good. Let me show you how we can help you there. Now I've created and defined a problem. I've assessed to see if there's an actual need. So now both of those check boxes are there, and I can offer a solution. But if one of those wasn't there, the solution would have no value because I didn't listen. Does that
Yeah.
sequence make sense?
Yeah. It's definitely an up level. I appreciate that. So I think we have some work to do with finding some of those stats and being able to point out that information that's going to be helpful.
Well, I bet you there's like the top 5 things or top 10 things you can do at a home to increase its value.
Yeah, and
It's
I
gotta
mean,
be
I
in there.
guarantee you that of all 8 of the things that we do on the platform to help the customer, there's probably data that we could find around each one of those things.
Yeah. But now it's tangible to me, and but I'm also learning through the process, and you're using that to also gauge the how astute the buyer is and their home ownership acumen, if you will.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I kind of want to transition now from the front end of the connection with the client and making the relationship, and then earning their trust, earning the business, helping them, complete the transaction as necessary, to the long-term commitment that we have, right? Which is, again, expanding the scope, that 30 days is important, but 30 years is much more important. So one of the things we train all the partners on the Art of Home Ownership platform to do is to take the time to schedule a post-closing call with the client, right? And we spend 20 to 30 minutes with the client after the transaction closes, which is really kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
And we explain the next 20 to 30 years of our relationship, right? So
Wow.
we talk about how we're going to connect with them, the information we're going to be giving them, the platforms that we'll be allowing them to utilize, and then we help them understand how to engage with it, when we're going to be calling and why we're going to be calling, what our goals for them are, and just really getting them to understand that's really the basis of where the relationship starts, and the majority of the value is going to come between the end of the transaction and 30 years from now. And I always tell people, if you thought we were valuable for the last 30 days, you're going to be blown away with how valuable we are for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
So all that being said, how can we have a even more impact and influence to really get them to not just understand what we're doing, but to engage and follow the process in a way that's going to really be beneficial for them, and they don't believe that we're doing it from a place of selfishness, right? Like, if you follow our process, we'll end up making more money, which is what majority of the consumers are going to think, because nobody's ever given them advice or guidance long term, right? It's just always
Right.
been transactional. So what would you coach us on how we can get them to really understand that and connect with us more deeply to take our advice and engage in the process?
Well, one, being okay with the fact that you will get paid long term is okay. There's nothing free in this world. I think when people think something is free, that's when they get, when they know it's not free. Well, how am I paying for this somehow? You'd say, hey, it behooves both of us for us to do this. I don't want to have to go out there and reinvent relationships. I like working with people. And just like a good financial planner, they usually work together for the entire, the entirety of the lifespan. We want to do the same thing. But what's fun about this is that you get to benefit. It doesn't actually cost you anything for us to do this. Right. That's the first thing. It doesn't cost you anything. Yes, I get paid, but I get paid by the banks to do that. And so that's what makes this process cool. But really, the payment for me is in the conversations we get to have on a yearly basis. Every year when you know that we've been there for you and we're helping you make better decisions, and we're smiling 10 years from now when you look at the wealth that you've been able to build. And so you've got to be a vision caster with them. You got to be able to fast forward the inevitable, but internally be okay with the fact that you are paid for this. And that's okay. And in fact, the more that they understand that that you are getting paid and you're honest about it, the trust is built. And so you have a choice. And I would probably say, we all have choices in how we do business. Let me show you how we decided. One choice was that we do a transaction and we're done with it. We put our marketing efforts to find the next transaction. That doesn't excite me. What excites me is putting our efforts into finding like-minded people like you and putting our efforts into maintaining the long-term relationships, because we know that every 5 to 7 years, we're probably going to do business again. And if I can do that with all my customers, I actually build a reoccurring practice of people that I love working with. And what's really cool about that, the big accountability, is if I'm not good and I don't add value, you don't have to use me. There's no contracts. So I'm held accountable by the reality of your choice to either come to me or not come to me. So the onus is on me to continually add value to you over the next 30 years of our relationship.
Mic drop. We are going to be definitely adding to our post-closing script. That's awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I charge per word. So just,
Yes, I know. And it's well worth it. We'd be happy to pay for every one of them.
I don't charge for it, but I'm using some copywriters right now for some projects. And it was like they literally charge per word. I was like, it's pretty interesting.
Wow. Speaking of which, can we announce your project that you're working on?
What's that?
I said, can we announce the project you're working on? I'm assuming that's what it is.
Well, I'm writing that one, but there's a bunch. We're doing some on-demand stuff and all that stuff. But yeah,
got it. Okay.
The book you're referring to?
Yeah.
We signed our contract with Wiley that comes out in early 2022, and so we've got about November 1st is the full manuscript is due, and then we go through the grueling editing process that Wiley puts us through. And so we are as excited as could be. That's for sure. It's been a long time.
Well, please let us know when the pre-orders are available. We'll make sure everyone in Art of Home Ownership is signed up to get a book.
I love that idea.
Yeah. Well, we have a question here. Sosi actually jumped in and just talked about the definition of value, and I couldn't agree with him more. And then Alberto is asking in regards to advice or input on finding like-minded professional partners. I think that the same thing holds true for our clients as does it our business partners. So our real estate professionals, if we're a mortgage professional, or CPAs, financial planners, estate planning attorneys, contractors. This is such a foreign concept, right? To really be proactive in our guidance and advice with our clients and to commit to a higher level outcome than just the transaction, that oftentimes it's, people just aren't in the mindset to do these things. What would be your strategy for finding partners that this connects with, for either real estate or mortgage professionals to go talk to really understand how we can help their clients and help their business as well?
So the answer is pretty simple. I'll give you an analogy. If you were to post a very extreme political belief, what would you accomplish? What you would accomplish is repelling.
Two very different responses.
Well, you'd repel those that don't believe what you believe, and you'd attract those
Yep.
who believe what you believe, or like-minded people. And so the reality is that if you want to attract like-minded people, you've got to announce to the world what you believe. And if you announce it loud and you announce it respectfully, if you announce it in a value-added way, people are going to go, yeah, that's what I've been wanting to say. Yeah, you and I, we're the same. And so you've got to get clear on what you believe. And if you don't have a strong belief around this, you're going to attract people that don't have much of a belief around it too. And so like-minded, what? Like-minded how? What do you believe? I'll give you some examples. I believe that the relationship we have with our customers should last 30 years plus. We owe it to them. Like somebody goes, yeah, we do. There's a like-minded person. We believe that not all homeowners are the same, and the onus is on us to create better homeowners in this world. Yeah, we really do need to do that. Jose Andres, Chef Jose Andres, #1 chef in the world, humanitarian, beautiful human being, was just actually awarded $100 million from Jeff Bezos. I've been a fan. In fact, my whole Amplified Dinner is designed around his philosophy around food. Maximum flavor, minimum quantity. And Jose Andres talks about, and his belief is the chefs of the world are failing. The chefs of the world need to do a better job of feeding the world. We know how to cook. We understand ingredients. We know what's healthy, what's not, and we're not saying anything. We need to stand up. And all the good chefs go, I agree. And then they come around it because he announced what he believed. And so those of you watching, you got to ask, what do you believe? And are you willing, and do you have the capacity and the skill set to announce it? If you don't, well, guess what? You need to learn. You need to learn how to communicate what it is you believe. You need to learn how to talk about it and tell as many different people as possible. And the hardest part is you got to be okay with not everybody liking and believing what you believe. But what that does is that it makes things much clearer, because it repels those that you don't want to do business with. If you have the belief system that you need to do business with everybody, and I can't afford not to talk to somebody, well, then you don't understand the reality of being focused. Because when you put out what you believe, people that don't believe that and kind of are out for the buck, and they're not going to say I'm out for the buck. They're saying, you know what, this is a business and numbers game. We got to keep going. I don't have time for that. Good.
Yeah.
We don't. Then we're probably not good partners. Now, those people can make a lot of money. That's a very viable philosophy. But is it yours? So it's not about good, right, or good or bad, better or worse. This is about what do you believe, and say it loudly, and then connect with those that agree.
Man, if everyone watching this their wheels aren't turning right now, and there may be something broken, but that is extremely well said and so poignant to what we're trying to accomplish, right? Because at Art of Homeownership, we're just attracting people who believe what we believe, and we continue to put the message out there, and the people that it speaks to and the people that it lands with, they're connecting with us. And the same thing needs to happen for any one of your business partners. And that, I can't tell you how many times it happens to me, because I'm out talking to real estate agents, I'm talking to financial planners, I'm talking to different business professionals, and it's very obvious when our message lands with someone and when it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like almost a visceral feeling where it's either the light goes on and they engage, or it's, oh, that's kind of cool, but I'm doing X number of transactions. I don't know where we'd fit that in. Right? It's just their just cause is very different than ours. So I think that's probably one of the most valuable things that I've maybe taken away all year, is just to be loud and clear about our message. And the people who are supposed to find us will find us, and vice versa.
But I think, I'd love to see, because right now, and it's part of who you are. You're such a tactician, a technical, you're so intellectual in what you do. And we talked about this even in Amplify. I was getting more of the pathos out there, even right now, smiling, you've got a great smile, right? And
talked about that last night.
But it's the other side of it too, is the belief statements, right? Because right now you literally would win the war on anybody went toe to toe on statistics as to why this works.
Yeah.
Statistics are powerful, but they don't always drive decisions, right? And so what we've got to do is combine that with what you believe. I would love to see just branding, posts that say we believe, and what it is you believe in some sort of, it doesn't always have to say we believe, but it's got to represent a belief system. And who does really, really good marketing is the Remarkable tool. Have you seen that Remarkable tool?
No.
It's the e-paper, e-ink. I've got one right here. Actually, it's, if you look at the Remarkable, Yeah. How they advertise, it's incredible. I mean, it's incredible how they do it. And it's worth taking a look at it. But I think if you really got clear on what does Art of Homeownership believe and the way I look at it is for you to be successful in this concept of this way of doing business, what must you believe? Because if our beliefs drive our behavior, behavior drives our results, well, what are the positive behaviors that we engage in, right? Phone calls, questions, interviews, needs analysis, listening. Those are behaviors. For me to engage in those behaviors, those are supported by a set of beliefs. Okay, we don't always look at that. What are those sets of beliefs? Well, I do care about people. I believe people need to be heard. I believe that people don't know what they don't know, and my job is to listen for those gaps and help. I believe that it's my job to educate people on how to be better homeowners. I believe, right? So there's all these things. What is it that you believe? And then putting that out there, and those that resonate with that go, I do too. But what is that? How are you going to help me? Because all we want to do is manifest our beliefs. That's what our work is.
Yeah. Right.
That's what we pursue. We believe this, and therefore I'm going to do that. And that's why when we just chase money, we're not manifesting a belief, and we end up kind of running out of steam. So if you can help me manifest beliefs, I'm pretty loyal.
Man, super powerful. Thank you. I almost feel strange shifting into more of a tactical question now because we're so far into that belief system. But one of the questions I had written down that I wanted to ask was, a big part of helping our clientele to not just own a home, but to become successful homeowners and to grow their wealth and to really move the needle in terms of their financial freedom score, right? Get people to where they feel like they have kind of an everyman's family office. How often, I know you talk a lot about cadence, and it may be in a different context, but what's too much? Because one of the things that we hear often is, we may be over communicating to the client because a lot of people have CRMs that send out terrible email follow-up messages that have no value. And then, they actually become our Art of Homeownership partner, which has valuable content, but they're concerned about the cadence or how often they should be keeping in touch with their clients without being overbearing. And then, what do you think would be important for the consumer to understand as to the why behind we're communicating? And is there a cadence that you would recommend?
Well, one of the things I pride myself, Ryan, is staying in my lane. And email communications and cadences and marketing campaigns isn't one of my lanes. In fact, I default to a lot of people on that. But
yeah,
because I'm trying to learn it myself. Marketing communications and things like that from like a CRM, it's a hard one. And I fail often at it because I forget I have a hard time conceptualizing the scenario that people are reading this in. And I'll give you an example. We made a mistake. We have this thing called Community app, where it's a texting app. And we made a mistake, and somebody had sent me, say, hey, what if I asked the group this question? And then they put the question, and we said, oh, great question. And what they did is they copied and pasted the whole thing, and that went out. So it said, what do you think if I were to do this, this, and that? And then put the question in. And we're going, oh no, like that was, you got to cut the first part out. There was a question to me, the whole thing. It got more responses than anything that we'd ever done. Because one thing we forgot is that people read those as if it's only sent to them. And they started responding. They go, hey, thanks for asking. You know what I think you should do is this. And I'm like, and we started laughing. We go, because we thought it was going to be the most horrific thing. But what's hard to conceptualize is how someone's reading it and what value is. And what we found is that people like to be asked questions. What do we do? What do you think about this? And they engaged with it. And literally we were blown away by that concept. I thought it was kind of an interesting case study. But I think that the more you can, there's people there's philosophies on marketing. There's people that are going to what's a shock and awe, and it's a numbers game. And I know some people that do that. And I also know the amount of people that they offend, they get blacklisted, and they get frustrated. But those same people that shock and awe get a ton of results because they play a numbers game, right? They're just going for a numbers game. I don't think that's your values in this one. I'm not saying it's good or bad. No. I just don't think that's who you guys are. Yeah. I think what needs to happen is you need to identify what are those moments, those points of communication that contextually make sense in this, and so that are timed based on certain events that communicate a very important value and a need at that point. God, that's an algorithm. That's a hard one to figure out. But I think if you're constantly claiming the frame with the customer, say, hey, you're going to get a lot of communications. And I know it's going to seem like a lot, but the reason is I want you to consider it as our way of staying in front of you. And if you have any questions, call me. Just call me, and I'll walk you through one of those. And every once in a while, I'll call to check in, see how things are going. But we invite you, and also we're open to feedback and all that stuff. But we just don't want to miss an opportunity to tell you something important. And so please know that's where we're coming from. And so if you do the preemptive frame that way, I think people are much more appreciative of it. And those that don't want it will tell you, say, well, to be honest, I really don't want any more emails. And I used to think of that as a loss, but then I go, well, why would I want to send an email to somebody that doesn't want it anyways?
Right.
And so it didn't add value. Like I'm supposed to turn their thinking around with a great email. No, I'd rather not offend them and have a phone conversation with them, a phone relationship with them. So we just got to listen.
Yeah, I love that. I think you really hit it well when you said basically set expectation, right? Like let them know the why behind the level of communication, set the expectation that it's coming, ask for permission, and manage expectations ongoing. So I think that's really well said. We do have a question here from Corey Bowman says, Rene, do you have a template to create a script based off our beliefs supporting our desired behaviors?
Do I have a template to create a script based on our beliefs supporting our desired behavior? Wow. That is a big question. I think that scripting something like that would be difficult because there's so many elements involved in that. There are so many variables.
Yeah.
I think the first step is to identify what your beliefs are. And I'll give you some clues. Beliefs are also your values. Beliefs are your memories that you are very fond of, like the things your parents taught you, your grandparents or coaches taught you, the things you remember that were defining for you. Those are beliefs that now we sort of live out as adults. But I would really start getting clear of what do you believe, right? And then in terms of the beliefs supporting our desired behaviors, if you're talking about your personal desired behaviors, there's a values alignment in terms of what we do and what we believe. When those aren't aligned, we experience the dissonance piece. That's what cognitive dissonance is, and it's an internal pain of incongruency. And so you've got to be able to align. If you're behaving in a certain way that goes in contrast to what you believe, you got to be able to make a choice. Either you got to change what you believe or change your behavior. And unfortunately, a lot of people will change their beliefs. Or fortunately, who knows? Maybe that we need to grow. It's not an either or. But if you're trying to say, how do I design a script to use my beliefs to get people to act a certain way? I wouldn't think about it that way. I would think about it in terms of what do I believe and how does that align with the value proposition and the beliefs of the product, service, or idea that I'm trying to communicate. And I would make sure that I'm listening to the customer to understand what their beliefs are and what their goals and objectives are, their challenges that I might be able to solve, and how do I create alignment between all of those elements. That is something that if you just learn to listen, I think you'll be able to be guided. You'll know what to do. But they are disciplines for sure.
Yeah, I think that's it's going to be difficult for anybody to create a script based off of beliefs and behaviors without knowing the belief system first. So I think that's a really good way of putting it, Corey. Hopefully that was helpful.
But I think also the one thing I will say though is that Simon Sinek Start With Why has an interesting scripting process, right? The golden circle is looking at, if I were to draw that out, remember that he's got the three circles that are there, and the way that they communicate was the why, how, and what that most companies communicate from this outside in approach, right? They tell people, here's what you do, here's how we do it, and if you do that, I could expect some sort of behavior, right? I'm a great attorney. I win most of my cases. Do you want to hire me? Or we're a great computer company. We make custom products delivered to your door at an affordable price. Do you want to buy one? That's Dell's message. Versus Apple, right, has a very different script where they start with why and they move out. So they begin with the why, and they say things like, we believe in pushing the bounds of the status quo in everything we do. We do that by making products that are beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to be a computer company. Do you want to buy one?
Want to buy one?
Yeah, because we started with the why, And the why triggers pathos. It triggers more neurons. It triggers everything, and it triggers our emotions. And so we want to be able to buy that. So from this script, from Start With Why, is definitely a script I would definitely urge you to look into.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one of the favorite books. All right. Well, look, Rene, this was incredibly helpful and powerful. Thank you for coming on. I know it's changed a couple things that I'm going to be implementing in my personal business, and hopefully it helps a lot of people in art of home ownership as well. If this wasn't a clear message as to why you should attend Amplify on August 19th in Planet Hollywood in Vegas, I don't know what is, but Rene, how would they learn more about signing up for that, or how can people learn more about how they can get from you? Is it amplifymylife.com?
Amplify My Life. Yep. And the full course, the 3-day course that you've been through, is Amplify My Life. And in there should be a link up at the top that's Amplify Live, which is one in Vegas. It's just the 1-day event where 500 people are going to be there. The Amplify My Life, the actual course, is only to 10 people, but we are literally sold out except for about 6 spots for the rest of the whole year. And so we're already into 2022, which is insane, but we're grateful.
Yeah. I've been through the Amplify actual event with 10 people, and it was a game changer for me and everybody in the group. We're so much so that we're doing it again, just as our company and some of the leadership in the company coming up here in September. So looking forward to that. But guys, if you have questions for us at Art of Home Ownership, feel free to go to joinaoh.com or artofhomeownership.com to learn more about it. We have a desire and a passion to change the mortgage industry. We believe that people should be very successful homeowners and get the information and education they need consistently over 30 years to be able to do that, because as a society, we don't teach real estate or finance anywhere outside of people learning it on their own. We have the tools to be able to do that as real estate and mortgage professionals. We have the education to be able to do it, and we have the systems to be able to do it. So the fact that we don't do it is a choice. Again, nothing right or wrong. It's just a belief system. So if you believe what we believe and want to be the most valuable person in the lives of your clients and your partners and your team members, we'd love to help you know what we're doing and give you more information about it. But Rene, thank you again for your time today. Any last thoughts you want to leave us with?
No, I love what you all are doing. And to me, my urge is to learn how to be really good communicators of this, because the world is going to be better. Homeowners are going to be better for it, and the economy is going to be better for it. So there's rare that you're doing something that is really that good on all aspects. And so I urge you, consider yourself a pro, train like a pro, and learn every single thing you can from this group and from Ryan, because I think they're going to lead you in a really, really fun direction.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you more than you know. Looking forward to seeing you here soon. And everybody, thanks for being a part of this today.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care.